We're talking about COVID-19, the coronavirus, the effects of it. And I'll tell you what, we have with us now in our virtual green room, Melissa Negrin-Wiener, and she knows all about this because, of course, her serious thing is she's a partner at Genser Kona Elder Law, so she understands about older people and protecting them. And you look at what's going on with this virus and the CDC issuing a warning for elderly people with the virus spreading across the U.S. This is some scary stuff. And think about parents, grandparents, etc. in some of the facilities. We all saw what happened in Washington State. Melissa, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's getting a little bit scary. And we're seeing a lot more of those facilities like the one in Washington restricting visitation.
Yeah, so if you're not getting those calls, you may start getting those calls if we see more of that, especially in the New York tri-state area. What, as a lawyer, what could people do, or what would their legal rights be? Would they have any?
Well, not if the facility is restricting it. I mean, there is a state of emergency. They're now calling it a pandemic, so the facility has the ability to do that to protect its residents, to restrict the visitation. Not all of them are doing it. Some of them are asking people, obviously, what you're hearing on the news. If you're sick, please don't come visit, things like that. But most importantly, what we're just trying to get out to our clients is, they're calling, for the purposes of this virus, they're saying elderly is 60, right? So people over 60 need to take precaution. But people over 80, they're now saying, as the days have gone on here, that people over 80 really need to be careful. They need to cancel all non-essential doctor's visits. They need to stock up on supplies and medication, most importantly. They're really the ones that are at risk of developing the serious conditions from this virus.
So you're trying to help, in other words, if somebody calls, or just the thing to be concerned about is to make sure you've got that, because the number of Americans infected has skyrocketed more than 50% since just even last week. And as you said, that's the kind of communities that are getting hit the hardest by that. And sadly, I think that's going to continue. So that whole thing of getting the medication is vital, right?
Absolutely. And from a legal standpoint, we want people to make sure that they have a contact person, just, if they're home and they're being, they're being smart about it and they're staying inside, that they have a contact person nearby, even if it's not a family member, that can check on them and that they can reach out to if they need something. And of course, as elder law attorneys, we're, always preaching to people that they should have healthcare proxy in place. They should have a power of attorney in place. But it's really important when things like this happen, because if healthcare decisions need to be made, and they need to be made quickly, you have to make sure you have somebody appointed to do that.
Yeah, so this is timely in saying that people listening to this show, and I guarantee there are some in that situation or some that have parents in that situation. And listen, I come from a family of lawyers, Melissa. I just didn't become one. The mic was pulling me too much. But you're right. I mean, this is about getting things in place. And often, and you know this, it's people blow it off. No, I feel good. It's all good. We'll do it. We'll get the power of attorney. But what's the danger if you don't have the power of attorney and you don't have the proxy, etc.?
Well, for anybody, if there's anybody over 18, if there's no power of attorney, there's no healthcare proxy, and there's some sort of situation that causes the person to become incapacitated, whether it's an accident or an illness like this, then there's nobody really with the authority to make decisions, with the legal authority to make decisions. So then you end up going down the road of guardianship, going to the courts, which takes time. It takes a lot of money. And, it doesn't necessarily work out the way that the individual might have wanted. Sometimes the guardian who's appointed is not necessarily the person that would have been chosen if the individual had done their documents and named their own agents under those documents.
Yeah, and so that also becomes too. That goes into even the will area, planning, estate planning, all of that. When you talk about guardianship and veterans benefits, all of that comes into play, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And, the benefits are in place to help people get the care that they need, but they need to apply for them. They need to make sure they're eligible for them. And what we've been doing now over the past week is really getting the word out to people. Don't cancel your appointments with us if you're not able to come into the office or shouldn't or don't want to. We'll do a telephone consultation. We'll do a Skype consultation, whatever they need us to do, because we need to make sure that they're protected.
Right, and if they do a Skype or a telephone conversation, of course, the way technology works, which is brilliant that you brought up virtual, what can happen is easily, if there's any documents that have to be signed, they just send them back. You just send them to them, they send them back, scan them, whatever it is, and then poof, it becomes legal before it becomes too late, right?
Right, if it has to be notarized, then we'll go to them, if we need to.
Right.
But it's an easier way to get it done. We don't want people just kind of putting off the meeting because they're being told not to, to stay indoors or, to stay in their home. We'd rather actually, do the work for them, and we're happy to do it however we need to.
And of course, where you are, do you think there's more of a panic because of what happened stone's throw away in New Rochelle and the conversation about New York?
I don't know. It's really, it's interesting, with the closing. I have young kids and closing the schools and finishing, closing the colleges for the semester. And it's really kind of not something I've ever seen before. So yeah, I think it might have to do with what happened in New Rochelle and how fast it happened.
Right, exactly, because that's what it is. All of a sudden, overnight, boom. And so everybody knows, elder law, of course, you're talking about asset protection, Medicaid planning, estate planning, tax planning, guardianship, you mentioned that. And there's more than that. Is there something I left out that you think is super important?
Well, we also handle estate administration and estate litigation, and we also do a lot of work with families who have children with special needs.
Ah, there you go. So tell us your website, because I think people with questions, you have a great website.
Thank you. Our website is genserlaw.com. It's GENSERLAW.com. And I always tell people they can reach out to me if they have questions at Melissa@genserlaw.com.
Perfect. I love it. Melissa, stay safe. Thanks so much.
Thank you. You too.
All right, so it's really interesting, in talking about this, looking at elder people and the law, because of the things that we just talked about there, things you don't think about. And I went down, I know I've talked about this on the air, but if you've just heard me for the first time, my family was kind of that way. Here I have a family of lawyers, and everybody's healthy, there's no problem. And then my mother got sick, and then, of course, there's the wild panic of, oh my gosh, how... what's in place? Is there a will in place? And it wasn't because everybody's nestling down. I mean, we wanted her to live forever, but what happens is then the takeovers of things, and then what happens with health and power of attorney. And this happened with my mother-in-law too, where she suddenly got sick, and I think I was traveling, and there was a massive panic over power of attorney because there was nothing in place. And now with the coronavirus, oh my gosh, ratchet that up because certainly with older people, and you heard Melissa say it, 80, they're saying 60, but 80 especially, if people are in that ballpark and you're listening, you got to have the food, the medication, all that stuff in place. And I think she said something else that was so key. So you got to have you certainly have to have your documents, your healthcare proxy. That has to be there, because this is a healthcare crisis. Hopefully, I'm all about hope. So we want to see this cloud disperse. There's no question about that. But in the realistic world, you have to prepare. I was just reading something today about kind of this weird bell curve. Now we're seeing the cases go down in China, but we're just in the beginnings of with what could happen and how it can spread. And we know that this is the vulnerable community. So things in place become even greater for anybody in that cycle, anybody in that age group, because when the panic hits and something happens, God forbid, to anybody, you don't have it in place, or you look at what's happening in the nursing home care spots in the communities. But there, as she mentioned, there's not much you can do when there's lockdown, etc. But it's good to know whatever your rights are. I saw a picture the other day of a young woman who was sitting outside the window, and actually they were on the phone, and she was communicating with her mother in Washington at the care facility where so many people have died. And I thought, wow, isn't that interesting? They figured out a way that how can we go and see her and still have some sort of contact, because we can't go into the community. We can't go there, obviously. It's like a horrible petri dish. But these are kinds of things that are coming up, and better to tackle them now. Look around. Who do you need to help? A neighbor, an aunt, a cousin, a parent, or whatever, and just make sure some of that stuff's in place for sure, especially that healthcare proxy, because it's affected me twice. And when the crisis hits, that's when everybody panics, and you run around trying to figure out, oh my gosh, what do we have to do? How are we going to make this right? All right, stay with us. Much more coming your way next as we talk to someone with the oldest pet store in America.